We're going to talk about how do you leverage your database, and we're going to learn from one another of best practices and information. I'm going to take some of the top people that I've had the privilege of working with for the last several years and really just share what they've done. I've coached a lady named Liz Johnson off and on for 10 plus years. Yeah. She wrote a book called Perk Your Sphere. She's going to write another version. You can buy it on Amazon. It's her MVP program on what she did with her sphere. And so I've worked with some people that 90+% of their business came by referral, came from the database, came from repeat business over and over and over and over again. So as the conversation is kind of progressing, I'll just share, hey, look, here's what some of these amazing individuals have done, applied, what's worked for them. And I think the toughest thing is we all know one thing, none of us call them enough. Yeah. I mean, it's like a universal challenge in our industry as a whole, and yet we still can't quite figure out what is it that prevents us, gets in the way, stops us from communicating more effectively when I just sold you a house a week ago.
So this is just a question, like when you make a call, I feel like a lot of people don't pick up their phones anymore. They just want to text. So what kind of message do you leave them? Or do you not leave them a message if your clients don't pick up?
Great question. What's everybody else do on that?
Well, from the ISA team that we have internally, they say call twice, don't leave a message. If they don't pick up the third time,
Leave a message.
Not on my sphere though. If I call my sphere and they don't pick up, I always leave a message because I don't want to seem like they're going to see that I called. Right. So I want them to know that I called, and then I text and say, "Hey, I just left you a voicemail. Just want to see how you were doing. When you get a chance, love to chat." Or something.
One of Debbie's dialogues or messages, hey, I have some really updated information in the real estate market. I'd love to give you a call and let you know what's going on. Whether they're buying or selling or not, it's just, hey, I have some information that's pertinent to you. And we gather that information from like market reports, what's going on in the area, the neighborhood, the sales. If they don't answer, a lot of people now, especially with technology, is they'll either double tap. It's like, for example, you got to find out how to bypass technology. Technology is designed to prevent you from getting a hold of your customer. And it's doing a really great job. Spam filters, everything is one more layer deep. So some of the techniques is calling twice, because if they have a do not disturb on, my mother's wants this way. If you have do not disturb, it will instantly send you to voicemail. It doesn't matter who you are. So if you call twice and it has to be in rapid succession, the next call will ring. It breaks through, and they'll see you on the caller ID.
So if I do that, even like I notice that sometimes my do not disturb is on.
Yes.
So if I call from my house phone and I call myself 3 times, one after the other, I'll shut it in front.
The second one should go through. Yeah.
Never knew that.
Yeah, the second one will go through, but it has to be. I don't know what the time limit is. But there's a time limit or a window of if you call, boom, boom, then the second won't connect. The other thing that happens on technology is your phone, while it's attempting to keep and prevent spam, it's also attempting to AI, artificial intelligence, who is calling you. Do you know this person? How many of you have ever gotten a phone call and it's just like, this might be Janet Smith?
yes,
Okay.
a lot.
The reason is there's a dialogue, there's an email, there's a text, there's something that's happened. So it's attempting to connect that. Did you ever have any dialogue? So one way around that, what we found works with our tech company, which is Brivity, is if you'll text from your phone or the number that's in Brivity, if you'll text, then call them. Now it's not just like a random number, it's showing up as, oh, Drew Lee's trying to call me. This may be Drew Lee. So now that's a way to quickly bypass. And I used to teach a program where we counted a conversation as a two-way phone dialogue or a face-to-face dialogue. I agree with you. So many people today, I don't know what the statistic is. I've heard it's like, some obscene number and percentage of younger people do all of their communications through texting.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, how do you count a two-way dialogue?
Yeah.
It could be email, text, Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, or a two-way conversation. What you lose if you only communicate that way is you lose the ability to negotiate. You also lose memory joggers of, can you think of anyone from your kid's soccer game or school or work or, so one great thing that we do is, and we suggest when you're texting, is there a great time to connect and schedule an appointment.
Yeah.
We waste an absurd amount of hours in nothingness. It feels really productive, but we're calling people, no answer, no call, no phone, dial, returning calls. Hey, can you get a hold? If you can set an appointment for everything that you do, when's a good time to connect? 1 o'clock. I will call you right at 1. Not 1:01, not 1:02. I will call you at 1. You're amazed how much more and how many more people you can connect with, communicate with. When's a good time to catch you? How about this evening? 5 o'clock, 5:05. Will you call me? Will I call you? You're going to get a hold of a lot more people that way. And we see the people who make the most dials, most contacts, and they're the ones that I'm just regurgitating. Hey, this is exactly how you do it. Anybody else have anything on the texting, leaving voicemails, thoughts, what works for you?
Well, also, when you speak to somebody live on the phone, you get a sense of where they're at. By text, you lose all that voice inflection.
Right, and I feel like I'm an old, I always say I'm like old school, like, I'm great if I get somebody on the phone, I meet them for coffee, but like, trying to like make real connections via like social media or text, like, doesn't work for me. Like, I have to like get people in front of me, and that seems to work best for me.
And there are people that it works for. I'm not really one of them. It's
Yeah,
just-
no,
yeah.
Maybe if I was 30 years younger, it would work.
I literally have seen 2 people before like run into each other like, oh my God, we're Facebook friends. And they like hug it out like, you guys don't know each other. In a way,
There is a separation.
You know, what's funny, I, had people where I was Facebook friends first, and we communicated so much, with PM sometimes or whatever, liking and commenting, that you felt like you knew them better than you know your own friends that you've known for 40 years or whatever. It's really weird, but it's nice too, because when you actually physically connect, it's just like there's it's like a symbiotic relationship right away.
how do you leverage some of those relationships? How have you built, say, online relationships and brought them into the real world? Build a database that way.
Well, all of my Facebook open houses, I always invite people and then like, did you hear about it? Or Facebook, and it's Facebook on great 5 minutes, how long you can call.
So check it. So you use the virtual component.
Yes, and then as they're walking through the house, I'll flip over the open house sheet and put like 5-year-old daughter, son about to start, middle school, like any little bit of information, so that when we do my Monday follow-up, I have all of that to try to make a more human.
Really good point. That's a really good way to do it.
When I was on a team, I was in charge of my rainmaker's social media, and she used it to amplify. It was kind of like, the icing on the cake. I don't know. It wasn't necessarily like the core of what she offered, but it helped say it in surround sound. And she did get a couple of listing leads because that was just the channel that they used to reach out to. So I mean, it definitely works. I haven't gotten there because she had a lifestyle brand,
Right.
but I definitely, I saw the results of what she did.
How would you mirror that? Like, what could people take away and say? What are some of the ways that you use, for example, social with the database and connect?
So I don't know about the database quite yet, but I mean, I know that the social component it definitely works, but it was a matter of, she started every Monday morning with what is the story this week, right? So every Monday was about like, okay, what did you do over the weekend, and then what do you have to promote that week? And it was, I wish I could find that. Yeah, if I knew that, yeah, exactly. That would be great.
Here's one thing I can share is we overcomplicate the database. And because for a couple of reasons. One, we're the only one that knows that we have it. Nobody in the general, percentage consumers, people we work, they have no idea, like, oh, you live in my database.
Right.
I'm communicating with you. I have this thing called a touch plan. All of the
The
drips. Yeah, they're just being a consumer. They're just being a human. They're just waking up and every day going to their normal life. And the fact that we have their information, it's like data is the new oil. It's the most valuable thing there is today. If you look at companies that have sold for the absolute most amount of money recently, it's based on the value of the knowledge and the information that they have. Angie's List sold for $500 million, and it was nothing more than a door knocking database.
Right.
And what really I would love about that
Crazy.
is it's exactly that. It's as simple as any of us could do it. Well, I love her story, and I can't tell me how much I'm studying her, because I'm like, I think about building $1 billion business, and my mind immediately goes to some technology that I've got to create. And then, Elon's gonna come along and want to buy it from me. She just had a database. So the power of data is absolutely is the most valuable commodity we have today.
It's interesting because we're in the business of database, right? When someone does it really, really well, and you get that call and you're on the receiving end, we used to have it beautifully. After the phone, I'm like, wait a minute, that's clearly in the database. I thought they called to say hello. You're even bamboozled when it's done well, right? It's not that it's bamboozled, but you think you recognize it.
You forget you're out of you're all of a sudden you step out of the matrix and you're like, oh, I didn't even realize that, every time, that's why credit card companies offer points. You realize that? Number one reason credit card companies offer you points and airlines, and because you'll update your information consistently.
Exactly.
You'll tell them where you are, where you live, what your phone number is, what your email address is. You'll keep your information up to date. So the value of your information is so valuable that they're willing to discount their products and say, sure, I'll give you a free airline trip every now and then. You just got to give us your information.
Right. To that effect, Ryan, who was just on the panel in the other room, was brilliant. He said in 22 years, he's only lost one client. That is like such a high bar to achieve, which I've been doing this 23 years. And I mean, I have 4 daughters. My youngest daughter's special needs. I went through a lot. My ex-husband had stage 4 cancer. They didn't diagnose till he had stage 4 cancer. So life kind of put me on the sidelines. So back in the day, without a team, I was selling 30+ houses a year. So I'm ramping up to get back to that, and I know what worked and what didn't work. And touching your database, to your point, so that you pick up that phone and it's a fluid conversation. It's not asking for something. It's a genuine touch, care, checking in call. And they'll just let any guard, if they have any, down and tell you about their life and where they're at. And maybe their husband's about to get a promotion, or maybe they're about to lose their job because they're getting downside, and they'll, in that 5 minutes on the phone is life changing. So, I mean, if you don't touch, and I'm so guilty of this, and this is like my 20.
It's an industry-wide thing, and it's the most battling thing.
Back in October, it's like, I am gonna make sure I touch every single person. My briefcase is in the car. I show you my book that I have in my database. I have the kids' birthdays, the anniversary, the date I sold them the house, like any other information, every 3 months. Because if you let more than 3 months go by, then you're not their agent anymore. I'm sorry. They're free to go to any open house because they're like a dog. They will forget. Like the 7.
They're in somebody else's database.
They're in somebody else's database.
People live inside. I mean,
You might have written 20 offers for them, and they couldn't get through underwriting at the first mortgage company, and you saved the day with your guy that had a relationship with. And that was all wonderful 20 years ago when you sold them their first house. But guess what? They haven't spoken to you in 6 years. So
I wish I had all those
Shame on
dates
you.
for all my birthdays. And
a lot of it you can get off the CO. A lot of it after they close on. Just want to make sure I don't forget it. Your daughter's birthday, your son's birthday. Do you mind sharing with me?
If you follow on social media, most of it's just going to be published.
Yeah.
You'll see 500 happy birthdays. You're like, in Google today. Yeah, when you text these days on your phone, your phone will ask, do you want to update this? When you say happy birthday,
Oh, yeah.
it will say you want to update that, and it will save that information in your phone. So it's so much about gathering data, but more importantly, what we do with it.
Right.
Like I remember we used to throw away the phone book.
Mhm.
You realize what a modern day, but like every day we wake up, and the irony is every day we wake up attempting to replicate the thing we used to
Oh,
throw
my
away.
God, yeah. All the information.
It's like I only had the data where people live. For so rich. People have built a career.
Knew exactly when the house sold. That
Yes.
was in a few months. Go back if you wanna, go floor knocking. Well, they've been in that house at least 25 years because they were in the next village square on the table.
Exactly.
Seriously.
Yeah, we know it's a challenge. So that's why it's such an important time to rethink our business as a whole. We are a relationship driven business. If we consider thinking this is transaction, then transactional business can be replaced. It's being replaced in modern times that fast every day with AI and other resources. I mean, computers now can send an entire blog post by asking the question. So how do we set the bar for customer experience and then continue the relationship? It is the conversation. And Susan Scott in the book, Here's Conversation, she said the relationship is not about the conversations, the relationship is the conversation that you have with people. So how do we fundamentally rethink that? And to me, one of the simplest scripts I've ever worked with was simply, and because it worked for me personally, it still works to this day. If I call somebody I haven't seen, talked to in years, how's it going? Do you have any real estate related questions? You know, how are you? Now, if they don't remember who I am, that's okay. Clearly that was on me. It's been too long. But how are things in your world? That's like my opening question.
Right.
How are things in your world? And through social media, for example, people will tell you their entire life if you just tune in. You know, we are starving for human connection. When you look at the speed and the advancement of social media, people are like, hey, please, someone acknowledge that I'm alive.
Right.
You know, here's what I'm eating for dinner. Click, click. But it's starving for relationships in some way. And as a real estate professional, we can be a real estate agent, or we can set that bar and be an experiential agent, have conversations with people, and they will share the most amazing experiences that they're having, plus all of their relationships. I don't know about you, in 2020, when like restaurants shut down, what dawned on me is I saw the most innovative and resourcefulness come out of our industry as a whole. I watched real estate agents do the most, the coolest things, hire chefs and say, great, if you subscribe, and there's an agent in Tucson still doing this today. Matter of fact, I just got her email today. She says, like, she'll hire a chef. She said, if you want, and it's a local chef, so it's a popular restaurant. If you want to know how they make their signature filet mignon, great. All you have to do is register. She uses a bright link, and then they'll do this on Zoom. So when you register, she'll send you the ingredients that you need to go buy, and then they do a cooking class. And it's at her home, and just like, all right, hey, we're here, Phil from ABC restaurant. Great, he's going to show us how to make this amazing dish. You probably have your ingredients. Record it, send the recording. I saw mixologists do this. Hey, we're going to teach you how to make our signature cocktail. I work with a guy who dominates, does like 1,000 transactions a year in 1,000 opportunities in a year. His name's Jim Schaefer in Detroit. They did bingo, man, and I've seen kids coloring competitions. So necessity is the mother of all invention. There was so much creativity that came in 2020 by necessity. And what saddens me is I watched the industry as a whole finally turn and say, dig into the relationships you have. And I watched the restaurants that went out of business. They had no relationship with their clientele. I mean, think about how many restaurants you went to and have gone to over the years that have never worked to capture your information. And the businesses that have no way to get a hold of you if their doors were shut today. The businesses that knew how to connect their customer base stayed connected. So all of a sudden, these real estate agents that I've worked with, all of a sudden just are doing all of these things and engaging their database and all these resources and sending things out unapologetically of, hey, we're going to do this. We love you to participate. You got kids, you want us to keep them occupied. I've hired 5 comedians that are all kid friendly, and they're going to show you how to make balloon animals. People showed up. People asked for the recording. More importantly, it was an instant invitation to re-engage with those folks who said, hey, I haven't talked to you in like 3 years, but if you're gonna occupy my children,
God bless you.
yes, thank you so much. And then I printed out, on my home printer, I printed out the coloring deal, and all my kids are now coloring. They're gonna start the competition.
Yeah.
So people have this need to interact. People will just take the first step. And the good news is most of your competitors not doing it. And that's the thing. We're a focus group together, not calling our database and not leveraging our database. And we know industry wide it's a challenge. Universal agents say, I don't call my database. Right. Good news is if I'm willing to, I'm automatically willing to do something you're not. That gives me a leg up in this industry and for the future. I just got to stay in touch with more people. Years ago, and this is just a simple tip, something I suggest to anybody. Years ago, one of my first coaches had me write down, because I was hard-headed, go figure. He had me write down on a sheet of paper and then laminate it. So it said, today I offer my services to blank people. It was blank.
Oh,
Yep. It was a laminated sheet of paper, and he had me stick a dry eraser marker on it. And I was supposed to put it in the door that I came home to. So when I drive in, open up the garage, walk in, it was on my garage door and it said, today I offer my services to blank people. He said, all right, every day you go home and you feel a 0, you should really work on your resume.
You're in the room.
You're like one
Yeah.
step away from being in another job, another profession. He said, with every day you go home and you write a number, well, you did the most essential thing. Every day, do more people think of you when they think of real estate than they did yesterday. See, that's the thing I love is we get to decide if I'm gonna go to bed tonight with more people thinking of me when they think of real estate or less people, which is gonna be my choice. And it didn't take, I'm not a mathematician, but I did discover pretty quickly, I was like, wow, the bigger that number, the bigger my pipeline got in a very short amount of time. Like, wow, I put 10 people there, I put 20 people there, I put 30 people there. And we complicate with social media, with mailing, with direct mail, with Instagram and TikTok and Reels. And we really overcomplicate. The simple fact is, do more people think of you when they think of real estate than they did yesterday? How many people did you tell you were in the business today? Or you open for business? So if you go home and you put a number there and you write it down, if that number is 10, 15, 20, 5, or more importantly, not a 0, you've done the basic essentials to keep moving and to keep growing. And then over time, that database gets wider and wider, and we look at the math that we did earlier. What would you say is, besides calling, we know that's one, what would you say is the biggest challenge or ongoing issue that you discover that gets in the way of leveraging your database more? Making the time for it. Come back. What else?
Keeping it scrubbed, I know we were just talking about that, but I mean, there's so many contacts that I have. I mean, whether they're clients or, I mean, even like coworkers, right? They like just have moved on to something else, or whether they're at another brokerage, or now they're doing title or something like that, right? Like, oh, so it's just, I guess, making time for it, but I guess it kind of comes back to reaching out from sub-segmenting.
Right. But even if it's somebody you met at an open house and they fell through the cracks, or they ended up going to another town that they didn't even tell you that they wanted to look at, and they bought something,
Right.
and you call them like, how's it going? Happy spring, the rates just dropped, they're the lowest they've been in a few months. Would you like to pick up your search again? And they say, oh, sorry, Moses, we bought a house in Springfield. Now, would you rip up their information, or would you then ask them about the house they bought in Springfield? Chances are it's a starter house in a few years, they're gonna need the next.
I'm going to get their information and say, great.
Yeah, and put them on a trip.
Send them a house phone.
Right.
Just chances are their agents gonna forget about them, but you didn't.
Many agents have built a business on orphan plans.
Also,
Big
sometimes
time.
people like that feel guilty that they did that, and
Why?
when if they didn't mean to buy without you, they liked you, and then they wandered into an open house and did it in a different area. If you stay in touch, then they're like, well, they think of you for the referral,
Mhm.
not the agent that sold them.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of value there, I think, to stay in touch.
The good and the bad news is it doesn't take much to win a relationship.
Right.
It doesn't. So, I mean, you and I worked together for 6 months, and you just happen to be at an open house, and all of a sudden, it's like, what happened?
Well, to your point, in the earlier conversation on the stage, like what other industry do we give of ourselves for free for so long?
For a lifetime.
Expertise,
Yeah.
and then they go and, just randomly do that. Or I had one client, I took them out, God bless them, for a long time, wrote a few offers, and then they were visiting a cousin in Texas. Well, I have a listing in the same zip code right now that I referred to Mary Lyons at KW that's closing next week in the town that they bought it. Like, I could have, had I known they were even considering looking at property when they were out there, I would have
Yeah.
picked up the phone with Mary, and she would have treated them like family and gotten them a much better house than the one they ended up buying. So, just gotta keep
I
asking
think-
questions too.
I think that that's probably one of my biggest shortfalls in the past, is that people don't realize I can help them anywhere. And they think they're bothering me by asking me about somewhere else.
I know.
I've had so many people,
Yeah.
my
So
past
we changed
friends, I
that
was on a
mindset.
listing appointment.
I'll say right to your point, I had a client or potential client who was the brother of someone I knew, and I was showing him, like, in this case it was Livingston, and I was showing him Livingston. He's like, oh, I want Livingston. His brother was there, And then I was like, I kept telling him, like, listen, I do all over. Like, I can, Jersey's a small place. I can do down the shore. I can do Essex County, Morris County, Union County, whatever. And I kept in touch. All of a sudden, the brother tells me, or I called him. He's like, "Oh, I bought it in Westfield." I was like, I cover Westfield. Like I could have showed you Westfield. It's 20 minutes away. And he's like, "Oh, I thought you just covered Livingston." I'm like, "No, I made a point to like tell him like I cover." Long story short, I lost the business and to Westfield, which is, if you're from Jersey, really, really close. And it was a tough pill to swallow, but you move on. But, it was like to your point about like, hey, I cover all different areas.
Yeah, but I think you have to get, like, for me, I found like, I had really good friends. I'm on a listing appointment a couple of weeks ago, and it's $1.5 million property, and they wouldn't think of anybody else but me for this listing. And in the conversation, they say, "Oh, we're selling Mike's mother's house in Jersey." I'm like, "You're doing what?" And I literally said, "You do realize that I can get you an excellent agent in the area, and I make 20, and I wouldn't do that, with just anybody, but it's like one of my best friends, and I'm gonna make 25% of that commission." They're like, "Oh, you do?" That's kind of where I'm coming from, where they think they're bothering you. Sometimes I think we're afraid to say, "Hey, this benefits us too. I'm gonna help you."
That's a great,
And it
honestly, that's a
benefits
really great point. They don't necessarily understand how it works.
Right, they think I'm
Yeah.
doing them a favor. They don't realize that I'm gonna benefit. They want me to benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
they really
So,
do. I mean, my
you
in-laws
see
have bought
it.
4 houses without us. And it's like, and every time we have this conversation, like, okay, so do you want like to send our kids to college? Grandparents? And the last time they bought a property, they finally allowed us to refer them agent. I'm like, we've had this conversation every step of the way. I think a lot of times what happens is, and this is from the intention, it's like, well, I don't want to bug you because we're not serious.
Yeah.
We're gonna go dabble
That's
over
who we
here.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna bug you. I'm gonna waste somebody else's time, and I'll go look over here and we'll dabble. And God, that's kind of an interesting house.
Yes.
Well, I kind of feel obligated to work with this person who's shown it to me. To me, there is no sense of arrival, especially in business in general today. The moment you think you've arrived, you'll be innovative and obsolete. Arrival in a relationship and databases, though, is when they call you for everything. That's the reason I use Angie as such a, not only it was simple in what she did and how she built a business and how she built a database, but she became the connector. And one of the most successful real estate agents that I've ever known. He's been in the business 40 years, consistently does $1 million, $1.5 million GCI. He was doing $1 million GCI before it was like a thing. He was one of the original contributors to a famous Red Book. His name is Brad Reeser. He's like the icon in real estate, and everybody in that community knows him. He lives in Edmond, Oklahoma. And I interviewed Brad once. I said, "Okay, you're this icon in the local area, and especially in the industry as far as that goes. What could anyone take away from what you do and how you do it?" He said, "People call me for everything." He said, "I've made it my business that everyone knows my business. They know I know everyone. So it's not a bother, it's an expectation. They call me for, hey, my daughter's turning 16. Where can I get a great deal on a car? You need to call my buddy John Vance over at Vance Auto. He will personally take care of you. Hey, where can I get, Thunder tickets on, Friday night? I don't have any, but I got a friend that's got some, or I know someone's got some. I will make sure I get the tickets. He said, people call me for everything.
Yeah.
I am the community connector.
The go-to resource.
He is the go-to resource. He is the local, 411, or, when you used to hit O on your phone and, it connected you to somebody. That's who he is. That, to me, that's what arrival means in the database, is how do I become that person where they call you for everything? And Brad, I think the funniest thing he ever said was, he was like, I know I've done a good job when a woman calls me and asks me for a doctor referral for body parts I don't have. That's arrival. And he said, but I know someone. It's like, oh, absolutely. You need to go to this person. I help sell them a house. And she has a great reputation. Everybody loves her. I don't know what she does. Don't want to know. But it's like, that's how you know. So how do we become that person? Because now that I've moved to a new community, every time I look at Nextdoor and it's a question about a vendor, a resource, who can cut my limbs, who can do these things. That's 90% of what I've noticed Nextdoor is. I never really used the app.
Dog walker, dog
Dog.
groomer, house sitter, plant water, everything.
Well, it's like, we just moved. It's like, I have 3 kids. Anybody have a daughter or a son or somebody that's trustworthy to babysit?
Right.
You know, a dog, somebody that can take care of my dog. But this is the job the real estate agent to me is supposed to do. Like, I have to assume every one of these
Community
people,
liaison.
yes, every one of these people, I have to assume bought a house using a real estate agent.
How did you get the real estate agent that sold you that house? Was it a referral?
I know her. I've known her for years. Which is the part that's even more troubling. I'm like,
That's you.
you know what? I know you. We're friends. We've known each other for years. And you don't call me. But as a consumer, I find my reservation. Like, I am in this world 24/7. I get you don't get paid. I'm even more reluctant to call you. I find myself constantly, I want to ask for one more thing.
Yeah, you know what, that's keeping in touch, that's really not being.
The team educator and the informed.
The way I made peace with it is I have to say it's not my job to follow.
But do you think that that's, the psychology must be so different with her relationship with you because you're in this business? It's possible that she may say to herself, well, he's an agent, I don't know, you don't know what's going on.
She'll bring it up.
You know, she's still, I know, she told you that, I'm not excusing her.
No, and like, we're friends. It's been a surreal experience to also say, yeah, this is an epidemic in our industry as a whole.
Right.
It's not her. I assume she may very well be very different, but I'm gonna make the assumption it's probably par for the course. And it doesn't make her a bad person, it doesn't mean anything different. But we're so guilty of this in our business today, of not being that person that they connect with for everything local communities. And when you like everyone of you know that when you see an agent that does it, they dominate.
Yeah.
Like there are people that would go to war if they found out they were using anybody else.
I have a quick question, because I used to be better at this than I am now, because I used to do everything like solo, and I really developed relationships with all of those people, and now I've done so many transactions that I lose track, and in some cases, I never really developed a relationship to begin with, because my buyer's agents are.
Yeah.
So how do you suggest, like, as a, a list, the person who is not really showing them the properties all the time, how to develop that relationship for?
I want everyone's
Just- I
spin
feel
on
like I'm
this.
dropping the ball.
I
I'm
have
not
my
phrasing the
answer.
question.
A top agent, I had the privilege of coaching, would do 3 phone calls. And he was not in sales at that point anymore. He'd do 3 conversations. He would have a conversation with that client.
We do the initial on a Zoom. with
He
the-
would
with
do the
buyer's agent.
conversation. When they went under contract, he would have another conversation. When they closed, he would have a 3rd conversation. So we did the math one day. It was, I think he closed like 330 plus sides that year. So we did the math. It's like, okay, so you're responsible for 990 phone calls. When you meet them, when they go into contract, when they close. And that's how you build that relationship over time.
And what system do you recommend? That's your own system, is that part of?
But it didn't
Tell you how amazing Brittany is.
I didn't know what the relationships are. I didn't know if.
The company founder that I'm partners with, founded Brittany.
I know, but now that it's placed, I didn't know if there was something else. I didn't know.
I will give a shameless plug for it. It is an internal platform and a system that all of us have to use. So we are the user base and we share it with the rest of the world whether you ever choose to become part of us or not. So it's not like a system that is built by 3rd parties for real estate agents. We are. So if it sucks and doesn't work, we're the ones that literally like knocking on Ben's door saying, hey,
If you're
fix
placed,
this.
so are you using, is everybody
100%.
placed using Gravity?
100%.
I Brittany was maybe being taken over, being brought into that W to replace Deanne.
I use everybody Use it for-
Yeah, because I-
Yeah, that's a rumor, that's funny. I can safely say that's a no.
I heard at one point it was last year, we're in negotiations and it fell apart.
That's because you're on FedEx.
We cannot.
It's recorded.
We're not.
We don't have any comments at this time. All I can say on it is, it is something that every one of us internally use. So our bugs are our problems. We have to solve it. And I think one thing that separates us from everybody else is like, we live and die by this thing.
Yeah.
It's our data, it's our source. We have to test. So what you gotta get as a finished product. We get the, hey, by the way, here's this new thing that we're gonna give you access to, and you're gonna learn how to use, and you're gonna tell us what's wrong with it, and you're gonna complain emphatically. But one thing I can tell you about Ben personally is when I sat down for dinner and I agreed to come work and partner with Ben, he said a couple things. One that I'll never forget, he goes, I'll know if you're using it or not. If you tell me it's great and it's fabulous and it's the best piece of technology, I will call you a liar and you're telling me you're not using it. But if you come to me and say, hey, it didn't work here, here's an issue, here's a glitch, here's a bug, here's a problem, then he goes, I know you're using it. He said, and that's how we consistently get better with it. But to answer your question, is like, what is a CRM? The best CRM is the one you use. I don't care if it's a Rolodex, I don't care if it's your phone, I don't care if it's a notebook paper with all of your, I was still, to this day, I was still challenged that my pipeline was the best, where I wrote everyone's name that I expect to buy a house or sell a house with me this year. And I had it on a notepad and I carried it with me everywhere I went. I called it my 7-day book of business. So I was never stuck in traffic or anywhere relying. I was like, I always had my pipeline with me. And as they would buy or sell, I'd cross them off. So I didn't lose any business. I didn't lose the leads. If I built a relationship and I had a phone number, your name would go on a list until you told me to go jump in the lake. And then I'd call you back to find out what lake. That's what a relationship, I think, driven business really is. We have tools today that I think make it easier for us if we're using.
I always say to people, I don't mean to bother you, but I also don't want to drop the ball. And that gets them to call me back.
Why do you think we're bothering people?
Well, and the response I got today was, you're not bothering me. But I've reached out 5 or 6 times to get her, to try to get her on the phone once. So I started to think, I'm bothering them.
I always ask them on that phone call and say, so, how would you feel if I called you back in a couple of months, see how you're doing? Oh, yeah, that's fine, after you.
I wish we would start
But this is
telling
an
people
initiative.
you're gonna hear from me once a month.
Yeah.
So
well,
then
that's
we
the
knew
one.
we were responsible
Yeah.
and there's an expectation that hold us accountable. It's like, I will call you every month. If I ever don't, and something's wrong with you, please call me. I wish we would start doing that more.
That's cool.
So I appreciate your time. We're gonna move on to next. Please visit the vendor hall. Meet our amazing sponsors and vendors that have provided this amazing experience, patient.